Hi, my name is Jeremy Bunch, and I did a report on the efficiencies of hydraulic versus pneumatic actuators. In industry, many machines have been implemented either to aid or take the place of an employee in the completion of a job. Two very common types of machines that are used in manufacturing facilities are hydraulic and pneumatic actuators. Even though each of these actuators behave very similarly and can be used for the same job, they each possess their own advantages and disadvantages. The selection of the appropriate actuator is crucial to having the most cost-effective industrial setting, meaning that to do the same job, it costs less money. When selecting the appropriate actuator, many variables come into play, whether the temperature around the actuator, how accessible it needs to be, the size of the load that the actuator is going to be moving, the cost of the actuator, and whether or not it needs to be food safe. The first variable that I'm going to go over is temperature. Temperature is a very major variable when it comes to selecting the appropriate actuator. It has higher effects on pneumatic actuators rather than its hydraulic counterpart. Confined air acts very differently under variable temperatures because air is made up of many molecules that are in constant motion. As temperature increases, air molecules start to vibrate, which causes an increase in space around each individual molecule. This increase in space around the molecule results in air becoming less dense, causing it to expand, resulting in an increase in pressure. And inversely, whenever temperature decreases, causing the air to become more dense, contracting, and making a drop in pressure. Hydraulic oil is not affected enough that it becomes a factor according to this, making a hydraulic actuator much more suitable in the situation where the temperature is going to become a variable. When the actuator is not going to be used in the same place, it has the possibility of being moved around throughout multiple workstations throughout the facility, accessibility also becomes a major factor. Each system is made up of multiple devices that are all very similar that work together to complete the job that it was designed for. Pneumatic devices are normally made of lighter plastics, while hydraulic devices are made up of reinforced steel. Also, the supply of the system becomes a major role in weight, whether making it more accessible or less accessible. Since pneumatic systems can be supplied by air, which can be rendered weightless, and hydraulic systems being supplied by hydraulic fluid that can almost weigh up to 58 pounds per cubic feet and have an external reservoir or tank that stores up to 4 times as much hydraulic fluid than it takes to operate the hydraulic system, makes it much heavier than the pneumatic system, meaning the pneumatic system is much more accessible than the hydraulic system. Each of these parts that make it more accessible also play a major role in cost of each system. Since most of the parts of the hydraulic system are made up of reinforced steel to withstand its higher operating pressures, they are much more expensive. The pneumatic parts are made up of plastics, which tend to be cheaper than the reinforced steel. The supplies of these actuators also probably play the biggest role. A 55-gallon tank of hydraulic oil is almost $4,000, while air is free to use and the only cost is the compressor. Compressors can cost around $3,000 for an industrial-sized compressor, but also hydraulic oil has to be changed frequently to make sure that it is clean to make operating systems most efficient. As hydraulic oil gets dirty and accumulates foreign material, it becomes less efficient, making it much more expensive to operate than its pneumatic counterpart. When thinking about the size of the load that the actuator is going to operate, its selection is actually quite easy. Hydraulic fluid is compressible to about 0.5% for every 1,000 pounds of pressure per square inch, while pneumatic systems are so easily compressed that temperature can compress air. And when it gets colder, air retracts. It's much like a basketball in the winter. Whenever it heats up during the summer, it expands. But when it gets colder during the winter, the air inside the basketball contracts. This causes a drop in pressure, making it very ineffective for loads. because also whenever loads are heavier, the air will compress a lot sooner than the hydraulic fluid will compress. So whenever the size of a load is larger, hydraulic oil or hydraulic actuators are much more suitable for this situation. When thinking about food safety, it is possible over time that hydraulic systems can begin to leak. It can leak throughout its connections, it can leak throughout hoses, it can leak devices, can leak themselves. This means it's possible contamination in the food manufacturing setting when pneumatic systems can only leak air, which can cause debris to blow around, but makes it much more safe in a food setting. In conclusion, hydraulics are better under variable temperatures due to the expansion and retraction of air due to increase and decrease in temperature. Pneumatic actuators are much easily accessible due to its lightweight parts and weightless air than the heavy steel and oil hydraulic counterparts. Hydraulic systems are much better under heavier loads due to the compressibility of air. And each of the parts of the hydraulic system are much more expensive than its pneumatic counterpart. And the possibility of oil leakage contains or means possible contamination in food manufacturing facilities. Appreciate you for watching my video. Hope you enjoyed it. See y'all around.